Welcome to this episode of Driving with Janine. This week, we spoke to Tuta Mionki, calling me from the media center at Sun City. She is not only a well-known rally driver and navigator, but she's currently in South Africa from Kenya for the FIA Rally-Raid World Championship taking place at Sun City. She's also the first African female FIA steward and a staunch member of the FIA Women in Motorsport movement. This was our conversation with her. Welcome, Tuta. It's so lovely to have you here.
Thank you, Janine. It's a pleasure to be here.
Tell me, Tuta, you have an incredible resume and one that would make anyone want to get to know you better. But before we get into all of that, because you come from a human resource professional background, so it's quite interesting that you've now found yourself in motorsport. Where did your love for automobiles or motorsport come from?
My father was a staunch motorsport fan, so we basically watch. It was a family outing, really. Every time the safari was, or the WRC round was in Kenya. I sort of lost that when I went to college, focus on books, and we also lost the status at that point as Kenya. But then I came back as a fan, and my friends and I basically decided to tour the country as we watched rallies. But at some point, I thought the people in the car having more fun than I am. And I thought maybe the best thing was to find out how to jump into the car. I was introduced to Abdul Sidi Rally Academy. Abdul Sidi is a former co-driver who his way of giving back to the sport was to train new people. And he does that for free, still does it, and really grown a lot of especially co-drivers in Kenya.
Okay, that's really interesting. So tell me, as I mentioned, you're currently here in South Africa for the FIA W2RC Safari Rally. Is it your first time here, and what's it been like so far?
Yes, surprisingly, it's my first time in South Africa. I've always had that on my bucket list. I'm happy to be here and to be here for the World Rally-Raid Championship. It's good to have the championship in Africa for the first time. We now have the WRC and the World Rally Championship, learning new things and meeting new people. It's always so much fun. Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. Tell me, I think most people, especially in South Africa, if they hear you as steward, they think you're just a marshal on the racetrack, but it's a lot more than that. Can you tell me, what does it mean and what does your job entail being an FIA World Rally-Raid Championship steward?
Like every organization, the FIA has a structure, and basically what happens is that the FIA has commissions and the World Motorsport Council that are the lawmakers. Then we have the delegates and who are the regulators. So stewards come in as what you'd call the judiciary or the judges. The work of a steward is to basically deal with infringements and make decisions based on the laid down regulations. Stewards are independent of the organization, so we basically look at the infringements and make decisions based on that. Based on the laid down regulations. Yes.
Okay, so it sounds quite intensive, but it's really exciting to see women in these roles. And motorsport is constantly growing. So it's phenomenal that you're participating in such a historic event like the inaugural South African Safari Rally. But what was it like participating in the popular Safari Rally in your home country and other races that you've been involved? And now being involved, in the FIA round is this one. How do you see the landscape of motorsport in Africa playing a bigger or more regular role?
We have a very passionate motorsport fan base. I don't know if people realize that, but we actually have a very passionate fan base. So for us to get the FIA international events in Africa is really huge. We went out to the prologue stage the other day, and it was a Monday, but the fans were out in huge numbers. We appreciate the fact that we are seeing the international events coming back to Africa. I think there's a lot of work going on in the background with the FIA. So for us to have these events in Africa is really, really huge. Not just for us as officials, as stewards, but for the fans as well.
Yeah. You, as a rally driver and a navigator yourself, and I heard your dad was a bit skeptical, but you've kind of given us a background as to how your journey began. But I was chatting to one of the ladies, to one of the ladies before I spoke to you this morning, and she was saying you're quite a personality at the Bovak and there in Sun City, and you're quite, a strong character. But what is it like being in a mostly male-dominated industry still?
Especially when I joined a few years ago, maybe about 13 years ago. There was obviously a huge challenge in that there were fewer women in these spaces, fewer women in cars, as officials. So you'd get sometimes a side eye, but I believe that once you focus on what you're doing, it doesn't really matter. And you gain the respect from the men. I think at the end of the day, one sport, like if I compare it to tennis, golf, where everybody competes on equal ground. So it doesn't matter if you're male or female, as long as you're good, focused, and most importantly, you enjoy what you do. It doesn't really matter whether you're male or female. We are still, there's still fewer women in the sport, in organization. Actually, we have no shortage of role models in motorsport. Even here in South Africa, the event manager, Sandra, met Samantha, whether as competitors, as volunteers, as marshals, there's this space and room for everyone.
Okay. That really is true. And I think, the fact that, yes, you're a woman and all of that, but like you said, it doesn't really matter anymore whether you're a man or a woman. If you're good at what you do, that's all that counts. And so just tell me, you're the first international African female FIA steward. But how does that process begin? How do you become an FIA steward?
My journey itself began, I think, on the side, other than the competitor side, from very far. One of the disciplines we have in Kenya is autocross. So when I was not rallying, I would volunteer on that side. I started as a timekeeper, a marshal. I've been a safety marshal in rallying. I've been a competitor relations officer. And I believe for women who want to join this sport, contact your local motorsport club. That's what I did. Find out what opportunities are available. Get into, volunteer your time. That's where you begin to learn what's available in the sport and what works for you, what's good for you. Then I remember at some point in 2019, I felt like maybe I needed to slow down on the competitor side and do something different, but I still wanted to remain in the sport. So I was talking to one of my mentors, co-driver mentors, and he'd moved on to stewarding, and we talked about that, and I felt that it was not too far off from my role in HR, developing policies, dealing with disciplinary issues. So I felt quite at home in stewarding, and I enrolled or was selected to do the regional stewards training in 2021. Did well and was selected for the inaugural high performance training program for officials. And that basically is what has brought me to where I am today. The learning doesn't stop, so I'm still learning. I keep meeting people with so much knowledge who have been in the sport for so many years in these roles, and everybody has been so welcoming, ready to share the knowledge, to teach. So I'm pretty excited about the international stewards role.
All right, Tuta, can you explain to me what ASN is? Because you mentioned this word and I don't really know what it means. So what is ASN?
So ASN is a French term, but in English basically translates to a national sporting authority, which is a national body affiliated to the International Motorsport Federation. That's the FIA. In Kenya, that body will be the Kenya Motorsport Federation. In South Africa, I believe it's the Motorsport South Africa, MSA. There's Motorsport UK. So there are different bodies in different countries that are affiliated to the international body, which is FIA.
Right. Okay, thanks for explaining that. And then tell me, what happens when someone breaks a rule, for example, in the championship right now, in the FIA World Rally-Raid Championship? What happens? What kind of rules can they break? And what happens when someone does that? What is your role then?
So each motorsport discipline has regulations, like I mentioned earlier, commissions come up with regulations, and we also have the Motorsport Council that ratifies these regulations. And we also have for each event what we call supplementary regulations. So competitors are supposed to follow these regulations, and where there's an infringement or where they don't follow the regulations, it's reported to the stewards by maybe a judge of fact. That could be somebody out on the route who's been selected to either be maybe a marshal or a time controller. This is reported, the infringement could be speeding, it could be you went off the route because there's a designated route. When it's reported to the stewards will invite the competitor, the driver, to a hearing where they explain the situation based on how they see it. Then the stewards, in this panel of stewards, there's a chairman, there's a first steward, and there's an ASN, basically local steward appointed by the National Federation, who sit and listen to the competitor or the driver, and then make a decision based on the regulations that have been set. The other way that the stewards sit to listen to or have a hearing is if somebody, maybe a decision is made and there's or a competitor feels that they have been, they're not happy with something, they protest maybe the results, they feel this is not right, they have a period to protest the result, maybe they have a penalty that they feel they shouldn't get, so they bring that to the stewards look at all the data that's available and then make a decision based on that. Our work is to be fair to all the competitors. We do that by following the rules that have been set, but you also need to be firm, because then the firmness also helps, us be fair across, the board. So
I see now why being in human resources is such a perfect background for being a steward. So I have to ask, when you decided to go into human resources, did you know then that this was going to be your future?
I had no idea that I was going to. I'd not even joined motorsport then. But then I went into human resource for that same reason. I believe at the time in my country, there were so many unrests, with employees. And I kept wondering, then I was a college student, why wouldn't people just sit down and discuss these issues, And that's where my interest came from. Then I went to try and, do a bit of research. What goes into this? How can we ensure that production goes on? We don't have people on the streets protesting and that kind of thing. And that's what took me to human resource.
Yeah. But I definitely think it was your destiny, because look just how everything fell into place for you.
Yes, perfectly so.
Thank you, Tuta. I really appreciate all of this. I'm very excited to see where this role will take you. So I'm also assuming you're going to be traveling with the championship and the FIA for the rest of the rounds until the end of the year. I think the last round is in October. in Morocco?
Well, each round basically has stewards who are selected for it. So I would love to be in the remaining rounds, but we'll see what happens there.
Where would you? Oh, I wanted to say, I've watched a couple of videos, and I love that you still wear makeup when you're out racing and rallying. Do do you still participate in rallying and any other like racing where you can?
I actually thought that, like I mentioned in 2019, I felt like maybe I need to slow down. And at some point, a few people would tell me I really need a co-driver, an experienced co-driver. And I'm like, you know what, I'm retired. But I'm beginning to realize you don't quite retire from motorsport, So I'm not involved in championships or events that require me to be there more full-time, because I'm really, really focused on the stewarding bit of it and want to be the best that I can. And I know that means that I spend more time, just reading and understanding regulations and going through decisions every weekend when there's an event, whether it's Formula One or WRC. So I don't really have time to do other events, but once there's something exciting, like recently there's been the Saudi Arabia Rally Jamil, which for me is not just exciting because it's a different discipline, but it's exciting because it's a way to introduce rallying to Saudi women who only started driving on public roads, I think, in 2017 or 18.
Just a few.
So for me, that's exciting, and just to support the cause that the organizers, are trying to have put together very well. It's a very well organized event. I've done it for 2 years now. Completely challenging discipline for me. There's no recce, which I'm used to, but it's a really exciting event because we get to meet women from all over the world. And, still, we're now seeing someone like Dania Akir, who's really doing very well in the Rally-Raid Championship. So it's exciting to be able to encourage women from other regions to take part in international events.
When you are not involved with, like traveling all across the world to attend events like this one, what do you do when you don't have your FIA steward cap on? What do you do for fun when you're just at home?
I like to read a lot, and I think that has helped me because I now have to read a lot. With the regulations, you basically have to keep reading and keeping yourself up to date. But the important thing for me and some of the other women in Kenya is to also help the younger generation that is coming into the sport. So whether it's sometimes just jumping into the car with a new driver to help them understand the notes, or train new officials. So I'm involved in that a lot. I love spending time with family as well. And there's so many events every weekend. Every weekend is a motorsport weekend. So but whenever I can get involved, try to help the ASN, our ASN, the best way possible. Grow the sport in the best way I can. Use the knowledge that I've gained from just interaction with more experienced people in this sport. That's what I'm focused on right now.
Okay. I know you've got a couple of impressive accolades. Do you want to tell me about them?
I got into the sport, and so very quickly, just from getting it, I believe I've also been lucky. There's working hard, and there's a bit of luck that comes with it. But I've worked with very good either former drivers or co-drivers, and learned quite a bit within that time. Won a few local championships. 2018 was a great year for me because I won the Group N and Division 1 co-driver championship, and was also named the Motorsport Personality of the Year in Kenya for that year. I've also, on the other side of regulations, been a member of the Motorsport Council in Kenya, and a chairperson of the Autocross Commission. So there's been a balance of both sides, and I believe the growth now looking back has been quite good.
Yeah.
So
It's incredible, like just everything you've achieved. And it's just so inspiring to see a woman do so well.
with that, I've gotten an opportunity to interact, especially with younger girls or
Yes.
women who want to join the sport, and they believe it's possible because they've seen it happen with one of their own. So
Yeah.
I think my work and our work as women in this sport is to encourage more women, more young women to get involved in the sport from whichever angle that's available to them. And sometimes people won't just open the door for you. If it's slightly open, you need to push it a bit wide open for you to get in. So
Yeah.
that's what I would encourage the women to do.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I think, you have to be proactive, like you say. You can't just expect things to fall into your lap. You have to be willing to grab and almost make opportunities for yourself. But tell me, Tuta, what or where would you like to see your motorsport journey take you in the next 5 years? What's your biggest dream?
My biggest dream right now, I'm working each day to improve myself, to become the best steward that I can become, to become that inspiration for other people. But just looking ahead and looking at the women that I mentioned earlier, the road sport director, Marina, the Rally category manager, I just see possibilities within the FIA. I see possibilities to improve my local ASN and ASNs within the region with whatever knowledge and experience that I get. And I don't think the possibilities are limited. I want to go to the farthest place possible. And, like, for example, this year in Kenya, we had an all-female panel of stewards, which was exciting. I believe it was only the second time in the history of the World Rally Championship. So that for me, having the road sport director and also the category managers, women, it was really exciting. And also for us as a country, for the first time, the number of officials in the organization, we had about 33% of that total number was women. So every day we are trying to grow that. And I mean, I've been asked a few times whether it's in motorsport, because I'm a champion for women in many ways.
Yeah.
What about the men? So now we teach whoever is available, but we also know that in a sport that's still very male dominated, there's that little bit more push for women. So I'm happy with the direction that we are taking.
You are really incredible, and I think your journey has just been so phenomenal so far. And I'll definitely be watching you. I think you've gained a new fangirl in me. And I'll definitely be watching your journey. But I wish you all the best. I wish you the greatest time here in South Africa for the rest of the rally. And just thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Tuta is a prime example of women continuously breaking ground in a male-dominated sphere. Thanks for listening. Join us again for the next episode of Driving with Janine.